The first time I realized this was going to get ugly, it wasn't the threats. It was the moment I saw my name at the top of a 23-page lawsuit because I rode my snowmobile on my own land. And the Homeowners Association wanted a judge to ban me from using my trail like I was trespassing on property I've owned my whole life. My name's Ethan Cole, and I own about 200 acres of mountain land in northern Vermont, outside a little town called Stanton. It's forest rock, a frozen pond in winter, and a private trail that cuts clean across the slope. That trail isn't new, and neither am I. My great-grandfather bought this place back in the late 1940s, and every winter since I can remember my dad and I ran snowmobiles through the trees, checking lines, hauling supplies, blowing off steam. The funny part is, I don't even ride that much. Once or twice a week, if that. It's never been about recreation to me, it's just how we move around out there when the snow gets deep. But the part of my land that makes other people's eyes light up is the access route. On the far side of my ridge sits Pine Ridge Ski Resort slopes and a lodge they own, but the only practical vehicle access runs through my property. Technically, it's an easement agreement my grandfather signed in 1965. Resort owners and their guests get peaceful transit to and from the mountain, and in exchange, my family got a small annual payment and lifetime ski passes. Then 5 years ago, a big developer, Summit Crest Development, bought the resort and built luxury condos at the base. They branded it Pine Ridge Village, put up fancy signage, and like clockwork formed an HOA. That's when Brenda Carlisle showed up. Early 50s from Connecticut, always dressed like she was about to be photographed for a catalog and always speaking like she was reading a policy memo. I'd met her maybe twice at town meetings, the kind where people argue about snowplows and potholes. She was the type who raised her hand before anyone finished speaking. One Friday afternoon in January, I'm outside splitting wood, and I see a sleek SUV crawl up my driveway like it owns the place. Brenda steps out with two board members behind her, Linda Shaw and Diane Foster, standing there like backup. Brenda doesn't say hello. She doesn't even pretend to be friendly. "Mr. Cole," she says, holding a folded paper like it's a warrant, "we need to discuss your recreational vehicle usage." I blinked at her axe in my hand, not in a threatening way, just because I'd been working. "My what?" "Your snowmobiles," she says, pinching the word like it tastes bad. The noise is unacceptable. Our residents purchased their homes expecting peace and tranquility. I actually laughed because it was so absurd I thought she had the wrong address. "Brenda, my cabin is half a mile from your nearest condo. You can't even hear." "We can?" she snaps. Sound carries through the valley. It's disturbing wildlife. It's creating a safety hazard. Linda steps forward like she's been waiting for her cue. The HOA has rules about noise pollution and recreational vehicle operation. That's when I realized what was happening. They weren't asking. They were trying to expand their little rule book right over my property line. "Your HOA doesn't have jurisdiction here," I said, slow and clear. "I don't live in Pine Ridge Village. This is private land." Brenda's smile goes thin. "We're trying to be reasonable. We're formally requesting you cease snowmobile use on the trail visible from the easement road." There it was. Not noise, not wildlife, visibility. The easement road and my trail run roughly parallel for a short stretch, maybe a quarter-mile close enough that if someone's driving by in a Tesla, they might catch a glimpse of me cutting through the trees. So what they really meant was, their residents didn't like seeing a guy enjoying his own land while they cruised through it like they bought the whole mountain. I leaned the axe against the woodpile. "Let me get this straight. You're mad because you can see me." "We're mad," Brenda says, voice sharpening, "because you're creating a nuisance." She holds out the paper. "This is your official notice. You have 48 hours to comply. If you refuse, we will pursue legal action." I didn't take it. I just stared at her for a second, waiting for the punchline that never came. "Get off my property," I said. Brenda's eyes flash like she's not used to hearing that sentence directed at her. "You'll be hearing from our attorney," she says, and then they leave, heels clicking on frozen gravel like a little parade of entitlement. The minute their SU-5 disappeared, I walked inside and called my lawyer, Mark Dalton. Mark's handled my family stuff for years, tax disputes, land paperwork, estate things after my dad passed. He listened, then let out a long breath. "They can't tell you what to do on your land," he said. "An HOA can't just annex you." "That's what I thought," I said, and I felt my shoulders drop a little. Then Mark added, "But they have money, and they can make your life expensive even when they're wrong." He told me to document everything: dates, timestamps, photos. "If they sue, we fight it," he said. But also, pull the easement agreement. Read it. Don't rely on memory. That night I dug through my filing cabinet until I found the old contract yellowed paper typed like it came out of a museum. I read it once, then again slower. The easement granted access for peaceful transit to and from the resort property. The resort had to maintain the road in good condition, and then I saw a clause that made my stomach tighten. Termination. 180 days written notice if the other party violated terms including legal action that interfered with peaceful use and enjoyment. I read that line 3 times because it felt like someone had hidden a lever in a wall and I'd just found it. If the HOA sued me over my land, that could qualify as interference. I called Mark back. "There's a termination clause," I said. He went quiet, the kind of quiet where you can tell a lawyer is calculating consequences. "Ethan," he said finally, "if you pull that trigger, you're cutting off the only vehicle access to that resort. That's not a small move." "I didn't start this," I said, and my voice surprised me tighter than I expected. They came to my door with threats. Mark told me to wait and see if the HOA actually filed. "Don't escalate until they do," he said. I didn't have to wait long. The following Tuesday, a process server walked up my steps and handed me papers. Pine Ridge Village Homeowners Association versus Ethan Cole. Private nuisance, excessive noise, disturbance of wildlife, safety hazards, diminished property values. They wanted an injunction banning snowmobile use within half a mile of the easement road plus damages. What really got me was the witness statements. A dozen residents swore they heard me daily. Someone claimed I nearly caused an accident by startling a driver, even though there was no accident report, no call to police, nothing. It wasn't just exaggeration, it was manufacturing a story. Mark told me the truth in plain numbers. "To defend this, you're looking at 15 grand, he said, "maybe more if it drags." I remember sitting at my kitchen table after that call, staring at the papers like they were radioactive. Not because I thought they were right, because I knew how long this could take and how easily they could drain me. There was a moment, just a moment, where I thought maybe I should just stop writing. Keep my head down. Let them win so I can keep my life simple. Then I pictured Brenda at my doorstep holding that notice like she'd invented property law, and something in me hardened. If I gave her this, she'd learn one thing: it worked. So I called Mark back. "Draft the termination notice," I said. He didn't cheer. He didn't tell me it was heroic. He just said, "Okay," in that steady lawyer voice, like we were stepping onto a narrower path on purpose. 3 days later, I had a formal termination notice citing the lawsuit as interference with peaceful use and enjoyment. I hand-delivered copies to the resort's corporate office, the HOA's management company, and Brenda's condo door. The reaction was immediate. Brenda called me 12 times that afternoon. I didn't pick up. Her voicemails went from syrupy, "We can talk like adults," to sharp, "You're going to regret this," to frantic, "You're ruining people's lives." That evening, the resort's general manager, Ryan Mercer, showed up at my cabin in a suit that didn't belong anywhere near a wood stove. He looked exhausted. "Mr. Cole." "Ethan, please," he said. "We employ 70 people. We have reservations, ski school contracts. You can't just shut down access." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "Tell your HOA to drop the lawsuit," I said. "Then we can talk." Ryan shook his head. "The resort didn't sue you. The HOA did. They're your condo owners," I said. "Your guests, your customers, your brand. You can't act like you've never heard of them." He tried offering money, bigger easement payments, buying my land outright. It was almost insulting how quickly he assumed everything could be solved with a check. "This isn't about money," I told him. "This is about someone trying to control what I do on my property because they don't like seeing it." By March, we were in court on the easement issue. The room was packed: resort employees, condo owners, reporters, local business folks who depended on ski season. The resort brought a big law firm. The HOA brought their attorney Caleb Ross, who talked like every sentence was a trap. Mark and I sat at our table, just the two of us. It felt like standing on a frozen lake while everyone waited for the crack. The resort's lead attorney argued economic devastation, jobs lost, families stranded, the whole town suffering. He painted me like a selfish man with a legal loophole. Then Mark stood up and did what Mark does. No theatrics, just facts. It's a contract, he said. The terms are clear. The termination clause is clear. They are experiencing consequences they could have avoided by not filing a frivolous suit. And then Mark dropped the other piece photos of the easement road. Potholes, washouts, poor winter maintenance, years of neglect since Summit Crest took over. The judge, Elena Hart, read the agreement herself in silence. You could hear papers shifting in the gallery. Finally, she looked up. The termination notice is valid under the terms of the contract, she said. My chest tightened, relief and tension hitting at the same time. However, she continued, the consequences are severe. I'm extending the termination period. The resort will have 1 year from the original notice date to negotiate a new agreement or develop alternative access. It wasn't a full win, but it was the key ruling. Valid, real, not a bluff. Outside the courthouse, Brenda cornered me like she'd been saving her lines. I hope you're proud of yourself, she snapped. You're going to put people out of work. I looked at her and felt something oddly calm. You filed the lawsuit, I said. You lit the match. All we asked, she said, voice high and tight, was for you to stop making noise. I didn't argue. I just walked away because people like Brenda don't want resolution. They want compliance. Over the next month, the resort turned on the HOA. Summit Crest's corporate lawyers filed a suit blaming the Homeowners Association for interfering with business relations, basically saying, your tantrum created this crisis. And suddenly Brenda wasn't the loudest person in the room anymore. Ryan called me one night, voice lower than before. We can make this all go away, he said. If the HOA drops their case against you with prejudice and agrees not to sue you again without resort approval, will you withdraw the termination? I told him my terms. Drop the lawsuit permanently. Repave the easement road to modern standards within 6 months. Triple the annual payment. And put real limits in the HOA governing documents so Brenda couldn't just wake up angry next winter and do this again. Ryan didn't love it, but I could hear the truth under his hesitation building. Alternative access would cost millions and take years. 2 hours later, he called back. Deal, he said. The settlement meeting happened in a conference room at the resort. Fluorescent lights, a long table, lawyers on both sides, and Brenda sitting rigid at the far end like she was being forced to swallow glass. The attorney read the terms out loud. HOA dismisses the case with prejudice. Governing documents amended to prohibit legal action related to my property without unanimous board approval and resort consent. Road fully repaved. Annual payment increased. Brenda raised her hand like a kid in school. I want it noted we're signing under duress, she said. The attorney didn't even blink. Noted, he replied, dry as sand. You were already in litigation you initiated. Pens hit paper. Signatures stacked up, mine included. As people gathered their folders, Brenda finally stood and leaned toward me, eyes narrowed. You think you won? She said. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. No, I said, I think you learned there are lines you don't get to cross. A week later, Pine Ridge Village held a board meeting that turned into a vote of no confidence. The room was packed, the whispers sharp, and when the tally came in, Brenda Carlisle was removed as president of the HOA on the spot. She stood there for a second like her brain couldn't process a world where she didn't get her way. Then she grabbed her purse, jaw clenched, and walked out without saying a word. Lesson learned, know your rights, because the moment you don't, someone like Brenda will try to write them for you.